This is the story of a girl that I will read out to you. When my grandmother passed away, she left behind a legacy that wasn't just emotional. It was physical. Antique jewelry, vintage paintings, a grand mirror from the 1800s, and a hand-carved wooden trunk that had been in our family for generations. These weren't just items. They were family history. I was 25 when she died. My sister Danielle was 30. We were never especially close, but we'd always managed to fake the sibling bond for holidays and birthdays. Danielle was the golden child. She followed the rules, married young, gave my parents their first grandchild. I, on the other hand, had just moved into a cramped apartment with 2 roommates, working freelance gigs and trying to figure life out. I wasn't expecting to be handed anything when Grandma passed, but I certainly wasn't expecting to be erased. At the reading of the will, everything was left to Danielle. There was a brief, awkward pause when the lawyer finished reading it. My parents sat there looking mildly uncomfortable, but said nothing. Danielle didn't even look at me. She just nodded solemnly and asked if she could make arrangements to have the heirlooms transported to her home. I couldn't speak. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just stood there in silence while they divided up a family legacy, as if I was some distant cousin. Later that evening, I overheard my mother tell someone on the phone that it made more sense for the heirlooms to go to the sibling with a stable life. That was it. That was the justification. Not love. Not fairness. Just optics. I moved on. Kind of. For the next few years, I worked my butt off. I stayed low, stayed quiet, and kept my distance from family functions. At some point, I stopped getting invited altogether, and honestly, that was a relief. Danielle lived in a big house with her high-earning husband, showing off Grandma's emerald necklace on Facebook whenever there was a wedding or party. I muted her. Then life, as it often does, started turning. My little freelance work turned into something bigger. I got a contract that led to a business, then another. I reinvested, I hustled, I failed, I rebuilt. And one day, almost 6 years after the will reading, I found myself sitting in a high-rise apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline. I didn't even realize I'd made it, but I had. My parents still barely acknowledged me. Danielle sent the occasional text during holidays, short and dry. I knew from mutual friends that things weren't going great in her marriage. Her husband had some tax issues. There were rumors of infidelity. Then, without warning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was from an auction house. At first, I thought it was spam, but the voice on the other end said, "Hi, are you related to Danielle Fletcher? We're handling the estate items for her divorce settlement, and your name came up in connection to some of the items being listed." My heart stopped. I played it cool. "What items?" The estate mentioned several vintage heirlooms, jewelry, antique furnishings, artwork, being appraised and prepared for auction. We were told to reach out to family members before public listing in case there was interest. I almost laughed. Interest? They had no idea. I asked for the full list, and sure enough, there it was. Grandma's emerald necklace, the wooden trunk, the oil painting that always hung in her living room, the silver cutlery from 1912. I stared at that list like it was a time capsule. I felt a storm of emotions. Not anger, not anymore, but something deeper, a mix of sorrow and power. I was no longer the forgotten one. I was the one with the resources now. I told the auction house I was interested. They sent the starting bids. Nothing outrageous. Danielle clearly just wanted quick cash. Her world was falling apart. Mine had just come together. I placed bids on all the heirlooms. Silent, precise, and with more than enough buffer to secure them. A few weeks later, every single item was delivered to my apartment, wrapped in white linen and bubble wrap. I didn't tell anyone, but the story doesn't end there. A month later, I got a message from Danielle. "Hey, do you happen to know who bought Grandma's emerald necklace? It's kind of sentimental, and I'd love to buy it back if it's not too late. I stared at the screen. I didn't reply. Not yet. I didn't respond to Danielle's message right away. I left it on read for nearly 2 weeks. That wasn't out of pettiness, not entirely anyway. I just didn't know what to say. What could I say? Oh, I bought it all back after you threw it away like junk while your life crumbled. No, that wasn't the move. Instead, I invited her for coffee. She was hesitant at first. I could feel it in her typing. Short replies, cautious, tone. Eventually, she agreed. We met at a quiet cafe downtown, one that had a polished but cozy atmosphere. I arrived 10 minutes early. She arrived 5 minutes late, sunglasses on, hair pulled back, trying to keep up the illusion that she still had control. She looked tired. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. The kind of tired you feel in your bones when your whole life is unraveling. Thanks for meeting, she said as she sat down across from me. It's been a lot lately, I nodded. Yeah, I heard. Sorry things have been rough. She gave a soft, humorless laugh. You know how it is. One day, you're married with a beautiful house, 2 cars, and a plan. Next thing you know, you're Googling how to start over at 36. She wasn't fishing for pity. She was just stating facts. I let her talk. About the divorce, the financial mess, the lawyer bills, her husband's hidden debts, the repossessed car. It all came pouring out. And then she got to the point. I never should have sold Grandma's stuff, she said quietly, stirring her coffee. It wasn't about money at first. I just thought I'd never lose any of it. That the house, the marriage, it was all permanent. But then when things got bad, I panicked. Everything had to go. I watched her carefully. You asked about the necklace, I said. Why that piece? She smiled faintly. She gave it to me when I got married, said it was a symbol of strength. I thought I'd pass it down to my daughter one day, but I pawned it. And now, I just want one thing. That feels like family again. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. You didn't pawn it, I said softly. You listed it in an estate auction. Her eyes froze mid-blink. I leaned in. I bought it. There was a full 5 seconds of silence. Her expression didn't even shift at first. It was like her brain refused to process it. Then, slowly, her lips parted. You! I bought all of it, I continued. The trunk, the paintings, the silverware, everything from Grandma's collection. It's with me now. She didn't speak. Her mouth closed, then opened, then closed again. Why? She finally asked. Why would you want any of it? After all these years, I stared at her, because it was mine too. That landed hard. She blinked rapidly, like she might cry. But she didn't. Danielle never cried in public. That was more my thing, apparently. The emotional one. I didn't make the will, she said, almost defensively. No, but you didn't question it either. You didn't even ask if I wanted a single thing. You just packed it all up and posted photos like a trophy haul. That's not fair. No, I replied calmly. What's not fair is being erased from a family legacy because I wasn't stable enough. What's not fair is watching you wear that necklace like it never belonged to anyone else. What's not fair is that Grandma raised both of us, but only one of us mattered when it was over. We sat in silence again. She looked down, her fingers trembling slightly as she wrapped them around her cup. Can I see it? She asked quietly. Just the necklace. One more time. I hesitated. I could have said no. Part of me wanted to. But instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a small velvet box. I placed it gently on the table between us. She opened it slowly, reverently, like it might vanish if she blinked too fast. Tears welled up, this time for real. I can't believe it's still in one piece. I stayed quiet. She looked up. Can I buy it back? I don't have much, but no, I said gently. You can't buy it back. Her face fell. But, I added, you can come by sometime. Maybe bring your daughter. You can see the necklace, and the paintings, and the trunk. You can tell her the stories Grandma used to tell us. She blinked. You'd let me do that? I would, I said. Because even if you forgot I was part of this family, I never did. She nodded slowly, eyes glassy. Thank you, she whispered. We sat there for a few more minutes, neither of us saying much. Then she left. No dramatic hug, no promises, just a soft goodbye. And I felt something lift off my chest. Not revenge, not victory, just peace. But the story didn't quite end there either. 3 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo, a black and white picture of me and Danielle as kids, sitting on Grandma's lap beside the old wooden trunk, and on the back scribbled in faint pencil. We both belonged. I just forgot that for a while. I'm sorry. I kept that photo on my fridge for weeks. Every time I walked past it, I'd pause, just for a moment, and feel that strange mix of emotion, nostalgia, pain, and a little bit of healing. It wasn't a fix-all. It didn't undo the years I spent, feeling invisible, or replace the birthdays Danielle forgot, or the holidays where she didn't bother to ask if I had plans. But it was a start, a beginning. About a month after our coffee meetup, I invited Danielle and her daughter Lily over. On a Sunday afternoon. I wasn't sure if they'd come, but at 2:03 p.m. sharp, there was a knock at the door. Danielle stood on my porch in a faded denim jacket, holding a plastic container of brownies that looked like they were made from a box mix. Lily peeked out from behind her leg, shy but curious. Hey, Danielle said softly. We brought snacks. I smiled and stepped aside. Come in. They wandered through the hallway, like tourists in a memory museum. Danielle paused in front of a framed embroidery piece from Grandma's bedroom, a stitched quote that read, "Nothing lost is gone forever, just waiting to be remembered." I forgot she made this, she whispered. Lily was more interested. In the trunk. It sat at the foot of the staircase, exactly where I'd placed it after the auction. She crouched down, tracing her fingers over the old brass handles. What's in here? She asked. Stories, I said, smiling. Wanna see? We opened it together, all three of us. Inside were folded quilts, photo albums, a few old, letters tied in ribbon, and the kind of random trinkets that would mean nothing to anyone else but everything to us. A dried corsage from prom night, a cracked ceramic cat figurine, a shoebox full of faded Polaroids. Danielle picked up a letter. Recognized the handwriting immediately. This one's from when I got my first job. She wrote it, but never mailed it. I remember her reading it to me in the kitchen instead. We spent hours like that. Time blurred in the warmth of shared memory. At some point, Lily asked the inevitable. Question, why didn't Grandma leave these to both of you? The room got quiet. Danielle glanced at me, uncertain. I answered. Sometimes grown-ups don't always make the fairest choices. And sometimes we don't speak up when we should. But what matters now is we're all here. And we're not going to forget this stuff again. Later that night, after they left, I sat on the couch alone and looked around the living room. Everything that once felt like a battlefield now felt full. Like the space had exhaled after holding its breath for years. A few days later, Danielle called. I've been thinking, she said, about making things right. I stayed quiet, letting her explain. She was in the middle of selling her townhouse, part of the divorce settlement. Most of what she was getting would go to debt. But there were still a few things that didn't hold monetary value, only sentimental ones. And she wanted to return one of them to me. You remember Grandma's charm bracelet? She asked. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. Of course I remembered it. It was the one thing I'd asked about after the funeral. The one thing Danielle swore she hadn't seen. I'd been heartbroken, thinking it had been lost or sold. But apparently it had stayed with her, tucked away in a jewelry box, forgotten through the years of chaos. "I don't deserve to keep it," she said. "But I think you do." 2 days later, it arrived by mail. No note, no explanation. Just the charm bracelet in a velvet pouch. And that's when something shifted in me. I called her. "Let's do something with this," I said. She didn't understand at first, but after a few conversations, we landed on the idea together. A shadow box with the bracelet, a photo of Grandma, and one line stitched beneath in fabric. We both belonged. We hung it in my hallway. Lily helped us pick the spot. Every time they came over, which became more often, she'd pause to look at it. That's when I realized something else. This wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about Lily, too. About the next generation learning that family isn't about who got what in a will. It's about who shows up, who remembers, who forgives. Danielle still had her flaws. I wasn't naive. She could still be self-centered, impatient, a little too focused on appearances. But she showed up now. She called just to talk. She brought Lily over with crafts and cookies. We weren't best friends, not overnight, but we were sisters again, in a way we hadn't been since we were kids. One night, as we all sat watching old home videos, the ones I digitized from Grandma's camcorder, Lily turned to me and asked, "What happened to make you stop talking for so long, Danielle?" And I looked at each other. "I think we forgot how much we needed each other," I said. Danielle nodded. "And sometimes it takes a few mistakes and a few auctions to remember what really matters." We laughed, and I realized maybe the real heirlooms weren't things at all. 6 months passed, quietly, peacefully. My house, once a fortress of solitude and bitter memories, had turned into something else. Something softer, warmer. It didn't happen overnight, but over shared dinners, unexpected phone calls, and awkward attempts at honesty that eventually became genuine conversations. Danielle and Lily started coming over regularly, not out of guilt, but out of habit. Good habit. Some weekends we baked things that never turned out right. Other times we just sat on the porch with coffee, watching Lily chase fireflies in the yard. I could see the healing in all of us. Lily, especially. She began asking questions. And about Grandma, about our childhood, about what we used to fight about. Danielle and I were careful, honest, but not cruel. We didn't paint perfect pictures, but we didn't sling old mud either. And yet, the past never fully goes away. It came back on a Tuesday morning. Danielle called. Her voice was different, rushed, nervous. "Hey, I need to tell you something before you hear it from someone else." My stomach sank. Turns out, her ex-husband had made some public accusations. Lies, mostly, but loud ones. He was angry she'd sold off the past and was trying to paint her as vindictive. A few of his friends, mutual ones, had even begun gossiping online. Petty, but damaging. One post showed up on a neighborhood page, accusing her of pawning family heirlooms out of spite. "I didn't want you to think I did it to hurt you," she said. I was desperate, but never malicious. I sighed. Not out of frustration, but because this again? The past clawing back into the present, dragging old wounds with it? "Danielle," I said calmly, "you didn't have to tell me, because I already know the truth." She was quiet, and I realized then, forgiveness isn't a moment. It's a choice, 1,000 little choices. And I had already made them, even before she knew I had. I didn't buy those things because I wanted revenge, I continued. I bought them because they mattered. To me, to us, and I gave them a home again, she cried, just softly. "I'm sorry I let them become bargaining chips." "You didn't," I said. "You let them come back to where they belonged." The irony wasn't lost on me. I bought back the heirlooms she inherited, and somehow we both got our family back in return. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. Danielle surprised me on my birthday. It wasn't a party or a big gift, just a small box, wrapped in fabric. Inside was a hand-bound journal. On the first page, she'd written, "The memories we didn't share. Let's make space for them now." And every page after that was blank. "I thought we could fill it," she said, "together. Stories, recipes, things we remember, things Lily might want to know someday." It was such a simple gesture, but I was speechless. For so long, we'd fought over the past, what we lost, what we missed, what we didn't get. And now, here was the future. A clean slate. We started that night. Lily helped too, drawing a picture of Grandma's house from memory. The porch swing, the rose bush, the chipped white steps. Danielle and I wrote down the cinnamon roll recipe we could never quite replicate, and a story about the summer we camped in the backyard with a plastic lantern and thought we saw a bear. It was the neighbor's cat. One night, months later, Lily asked if she could take the trunk upstairs. "To my room," she said. "I want to make it mine." Danielle looked at me for permission, as if I still owned it, but I just nodded. "Go ahead." It was always meant to be passed down. And as Lily dragged it up the steps, loudly, bumping into every stair, I couldn't help but smile. The heirlooms weren't just in the trunk anymore. They were in us, in our forgiveness, our laughter, our remembering. And most importantly, in what we were choosing to build next. A new legacy, one not decided by a will or an auction or even blood, but by love.